Family, a word that often evokes warmth, love, and the idea of unwavering support. But what if those closest to you harbor something more sinister beneath the surface? What if they secretly resent your progress, envy your achievements, and subtly undermine your growth? It's a painful reality that some of us face, a hidden battle within what should be a sanctuary of love and encouragement. This is more common than you may think. It's a quiet reality many people face, but hesitate to acknowledge. There's a comedic joke that everyone's worst enemy is their cousin, a remark meant to evoke laughter, yet it holds a kernel of uncomfortable truth. Why? Because in many families, rivalry is woven into the fabric of relationships, often disguised as playful banter or sibling competition. Consider how familial bonds, while intended to nurture and uplift, can sometimes foster jealousy, resentment, and rivalry. Whether it's a cousin boasting about their achievements to outshine yours, or a sibling who always seems to undermine your efforts, these dynamics can erode trust and cause emotional strain. Take of that what you will, but let it serve as a gentle prompt to examine those subtle tensions in your own relationships. Not out of paranoia, but with an awareness that can help you rise above the fray, unshaken and unwavering in your personal growth. This video takes you on a journey through 11 signs your family could be jealous and secretly your enemy, not to evoke paranoia, but to provide clarity, empowerment, and healing. Number 1, competing with you in every way. Competition is healthy when it inspires growth, but what if it turns into a quiet war? Imagine this: you land a new job, share the news, and within days, they suddenly have new plans to better themselves. It feels less like coincidence and more like a calculated effort to outshine you, to mirror your accomplishments while ensuring you don't get to bask in your moment of success. Whether it's career, relationships, or material possessions, their efforts seem to shadow yours, creating an unspoken contest where only they can emerge as the true victor. At first, it might seem harmless, even flattering, that they are taking an interest in things you are passionate about. But over time, the pattern becomes undeniable. Every personal milestone you achieve seems to trigger a reactive effort on their part to match or exceed it. When you excel at work, they suddenly have stories of their own professional triumphs. When you start a new hobby, they adopt a similar one, always positioning themselves just slightly ahead of you. It's no longer about mutual inspiration, but about overshadowing your light with their own. You notice it in the little things, the way they copy you on social media, their posts echoing your achievements without acknowledging your influence. It becomes a subtle dance of mimicry, as if they're trying to silently convey, whatever you can do, I can do too, and maybe even better. The mimicry might once have felt coincidental, even amusing, but it gradually begins to feel more intentional, more calculated. It's as though they are driven by an unspoken need to stay ahead of you, to ensure that they are always seen as superior in some way. The Stoics once said that envy is a disease of the soul, corrupting the individual from within. Envy blinds people to the joy of shared success, turning what could be mutual celebration into a silent competition. And in their relentless drive to compete, you begin to see the silent symptoms of that illness manifest. Their actions, cloaked in a thin veil of support, are driven not by admiration, but by an internal struggle, a deep-seated need to assert dominance in the face of your progress. This competition isn't about mutual growth. It lacks the collaborative spirit that can elevate both parties. Genuine competition inspires everyone involved to reach greater heights, fostering a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. But this is something else entirely. It's about undermining your progress. The more you rise, the harder they try to match your altitude, not for shared success, but to feel superior. Instead of being inspired by your achievements, they feel threatened by them, as if your success diminishes their own. And in doing so, they lose sight of what truly matters: genuine connection, personal integrity, and the joy that comes from witnessing a loved one's success. The pursuit of personal excellence should be about bettering oneself, not about diminishing others. But their actions reflect a fear-driven need to stay ahead, to prove something, perhaps not to you, but to themselves. Recognizing this dynamic can be both painful and liberating. You see their struggle for what it is, and with that understanding, you can choose to disengage from the unspoken contest and focus on your own path, free from the weight of comparison. Number 2, they show signs of envy. Envy is a quiet poison that seeps into relationships, tainting even the purest bonds. It is insidious, creeping in silently and corroding connections that once felt unbreakable. You can feel it in the stiffness of their body language when you share good news, in the lukewarm congratulations that barely mask their discomfort. Their smiles may appear genuine to others, but you notice how they never quite reach their eyes. Instead of pride, they radiate unease. Instead of joy, there's bitterness, lurking just beneath the surface. It manifests in subtle, cutting remarks, the kind that, on the surface, seem innocuous but carry an unmistakable edge. You might hear phrases like, "Must be nice to have everything handed to you," or "Not everyone gets lucky like you do." They veil these comments as playful banter, but you sense the deeper resentment behind them. And it cuts deeper still, because these words come from those you love, those you once believed had your back. Perhaps they don't realize the full extent of their envy. Perhaps they do. Either way, it becomes a persistent weight in your interactions. Over time, the accumulation of these moments begins to erode the joy you once found in sharing your victories. You start to second-guess yourself, wondering whether it's worth opening up to them at all. The Stoics taught us to detach from external validation, emphasizing the importance of inner peace over the fleeting approval of others. Yet, detachment is easier said than done when the people you crave support from are the very ones subtly rooting for your failure. Their envy isn't your burden to bear, but recognizing it, seeing it for what it truly is the first step toward shielding yourself from its toxic influence. Once you acknowledge the presence of envy, you can begin to protect your peace. You learn to set emotional boundaries, to seek validation not from those who envy you, but from within yourself. The path forward requires resilience and self-awareness, but in embracing these qualities, you liberate yourself from the shadow of their bitterness. Number 3, they gossip about you. There's a sting in discovering that someone you trust has been sharing your personal struggles and triumphs behind your back. It starts subtly, a few odd looks, conversations that abruptly stop when you enter the room, or cryptic comments from others that hint at things you've never shared with them. Then, you begin to hear whispers of their words through mutual acquaintances. You learn how they criticize your lifestyle, scrutinize the way you dress, and even disparage the food you eat. It doesn't end there. They craft narratives where you are painted as the aggressor in every conflict, while they cast themselves as the perpetual victim, always misunderstood, always wronged. Initially, you might brush it off thinking, it's just family. They don't mean harm. But as time passes, the weight of their gossip accumulates, slowly eroding the foundation of trust you once had in them. Each whispered word, each subtle jab, feels like a small betrayal. The Stoics believed that gossip reveals more about the speaker than the subject, that those who feel the need to belittle others are often driven by their own insecurities and dissatisfaction with life. Still, knowing this doesn't lessen the pain. It stings all the more because these are the people who should stand by your side, the ones you believed would defend you in your absence. Yet here they are, turning your life into a story for others to dissect and judge, as if your existence is a spectacle meant for their amusement. What makes it worse is that this gossip isn't always obvious. It often comes cloaked in the guise of concern. I just worry about them, or I hope they figure things out. But behind these seemingly caring statements lies a deeper intent: to control the narrative, to position themselves as the wise, concerned relative, while casting you as the one who is always a step away from chaos. Recognizing this dynamic is crucial. The Stoics taught that while we cannot control what others say about us, we can control how we react. By understanding the roots of their behavior, you free yourself from the need to prove them wrong. Their gossip is a reflection of their own internal struggles, not a measure of your worth. It still hurts. It will always hurt when those we care about betray our trust. But with time and self-awareness, you learn to rise above their words, unshaken by their need to bring you down. You find strength in knowing that your story belongs to you, not to the ones who twist it for their own purposes. Number 4, they act differently in public versus private. Publicly, they are the epitome of virtue. They comment on others' posts and react with hearts, clapping emojis, and words of praise, or proudly proclaiming to the world how much they care about a certain subject or event. They try to act like the most virtuous person online or portray a certain political view, but in person or in private chats, they are completely different. To outsiders, they appear as the perfect cheerleader, someone who is always virtuous. But behind closed doors, the story changes dramatically. Their tone shifts, becoming cold, dismissive, and often laced with passive-aggressive remarks that leave you questioning their sincerity. You find yourself caught in a whirlwind of contradictions. Their public persona is carefully curated, projecting an image of virtue and unwavering support. On social media, they announce grand plans with enthusiasm, portraying themselves as progressive thinkers, always on the right side of every debate, telling the world their every move without mentioning anything to you. They craft an image of someone deeply engaged in personal growth, always striving to be better, always advocating for lofty ideals. Yet you are left to find out about these supposed milestones through online posts rather than through personal conversations. This gives the distinct impression that they would rather share everything with strangers online than with those closest to them. When you confront this reality, you begin to notice the widening chasm between their public and private personas. Online, they present themselves as empathetic and thoughtful, always ready to offer words of encouragement to friends or acquaintances. They gain validation from their online presence, basking in the admiration of virtual strangers. Yet, in person, they reveal a far different side, one that is often hypocritical, judgmental, and reserved. Their warm online persona contrasts starkly with their cold, distant behavior in real life. This duality is exhausting to witness, as it creates an emotional dissonance that's difficult to reconcile. You're left wondering which version of them is real, the supportive figure they display to the world, or the critical one you encounter in private. It's an emotional roller coaster, leaving you second-guessing the authenticity of their actions. This constant disparity between their public image and private behavior becomes a relentless source of tension, gradually eroding trust over time and making meaningful connection feel impossible. The Stoics valued authenticity, emphasizing that a virtuous life should be consistent in both public and private spheres. True character, they believed, is revealed not in how one presents themselves to the world, but in how they behave when no one is watching. A person's integrity, according to Stoic wisdom, is demonstrated by their ability to remain true to their values, even when there is no audience. Yet, here you are, dealing with someone who wears a carefully constructed mask for the world while showing their true face only behind closed doors. It's a painful realization. one that can leave you feeling isolated and disillusioned. Recognizing this duality, however, allows you to approach the relationship with clearer eyes and a stronger heart. You begin to understand that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but of their internal struggles. This understanding helps you detach emotionally, reducing the impact of their contradictory behavior on your sense of self. You learn to protect your peace by setting boundaries, refusing to engage in the emotional turmoil they create. Ultimately, while you cannot change their behavior, you can choose how you respond with resilience, clarity, and a renewed commitment to seeking out relationships rooted in genuine authenticity. Number 5. They downplay your achievements. You've worked hard, late nights, early mornings, and countless sacrifices that few truly understand. Your journey has been marked by perseverance, resilience, and moments of doubt that you overcame through sheer determination. But when you finally share your hard-earned achievements, hoping for a bit of recognition or joy from those closest to you, you are met not with applause, but with indifference or dismissive comments like, "It's not that big of a deal," or worse, "Anyone could do that." At first, you might try to brush it off, telling yourself that perhaps they didn't fully understand the significance of your accomplishment. But as time passes, a pattern emerges. Even when you make noticeable improvements or significant personal growth, they refuse to acknowledge your progress. Instead of offering words of encouragement or pride, you are met with silence, a silence that speaks louder than any words could, or subtle jabs that undermine your efforts. The Stoics remind us that our worth isn't determined by others' recognition. They teach us to find validation from within and to remain steadfast in our pursuit of excellence, regardless of external praise. However, it's only natural to crave acknowledgement from those we hold dear, from those we expect to be in our corner, cheering us on through life's victories and challenges. Their refusal to celebrate your milestones is not just a reflection of their inability to be happy for you, it reveals a deeper inner conflict. Your success, instead of inspiring them, seems to cast a glaring light on their perceived shortcomings. They cannot bear this comparison, even if it exists only in their own mind. To them, your achievements are not a source of joy, but a reminder of what they feel they lack. As you navigate these moments of disappointment, you begin to understand that their reactions are more about them than about you. Their inability to celebrate your success stems from their own insecurities. Recognizing this doesn't erase the pain, but it does offer clarity. You realize that seeking validation from those who are unwilling to give it freely is a futile endeavor. Instead, you turn inward, drawing strength from your own journey and learning to celebrate yourself. Over time, you grow to accept that not everyone will be able to share in your joy, and that's okay. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control how others react, only how we respond. Armed with this wisdom, you learn to find fulfillment in your own progress, to set boundaries with those who diminish your light, and to surround yourself with those who genuinely uplift and encourage you. In doing so, you reclaim your power, ensuring that their indifference never dims your shine. Number 6. They constantly criticize you. Criticism can be constructive, but when it's relentless, unfounded, and constant, it ceases to be helpful. It becomes a weapon aimed at your self-esteem. They don't just critique your actions, they scrutinize your choices, your appearance, even the very core of who you are. It feels as though no matter what you do, it's never enough. Every effort you make, every accomplishment you achieve, is met with a subtle or overt disapproval, leaving you questioning whether you'll ever meet their unspoken expectations. Their words don't just fade after the conversation ends, they linger, echoing in your mind long after they've been spoken. You replay their comments, wondering if there's any truth to them, and in doing so, you start to doubt yourself. The Stoics taught us to separate ourselves from the judgments of others, reminding us to focus on what we can control, our actions, our thoughts, and our reactions. But detaching from criticism, especially when it comes from family, is easier said than done. When those who are supposed to uplift you become your harshest critics, it cuts deeper than most other forms of disapproval. What makes their criticism more insidious is its guise. They often claim to offer helpful advice, positioning their comments as coming from a place of care. Yet their intent becomes evident over time. It's not about helping you grow, it's about bringing you down, about instilling doubt in your mind and making you question your decisions. Over time, you realize that their words are less about you and more about their own insecurities. Their relentless critique stems from their discomfort with your growth and their inability to handle what it represents. Recognizing this dynamic is key to breaking free from its grip. By understanding that their criticism is a reflection of their own struggles, you begin to regain your power. You learn to filter their words, taking only what is genuinely useful and discarding the rest. The Stoics remind us that while we can't control what others say, we can control how much weight we give their words. Armed with this wisdom, you start to rise above their negativity, choosing instead to trust your own judgment and value your progress for what it truly is, your own hard-earned journey. Number 7, they don't support your goals. You have dreams, visions of a future that excites you and fills you with purpose. You envision a life that transcends the ordinary, where your efforts lead to significant accomplishments and personal fulfillment. Yet, when you share these aspirations with those around you, hoping for support and encouragement, you are met with skepticism and thinly veiled discouragement. Questions like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" or remarks such as, "Maybe you should try something more realistic," leave you feeling deflated and second-guessing your potential. At first, you might assume their doubt comes from a place of genuine concern, a desire to protect you from disappointment. But over time, it becomes evident that their lack of support stems not from care, but from fear. Fear that your ambition highlights their own complacency. Every step you take toward realizing your dreams serves as a silent reminder of what they have left undone in their own lives. Instead of seeing your pursuit as an inspiration, they view it as a threat, a challenge to the status quo they have grown comfortable in. The Stoics believed that greatness often invites resistance, that those who strive for excellence will inevitably encounter obstacles, not just in the external world, but also in their closest relationships. Your pursuit of growth forces those around you to confront their own stagnation, and rather than rising with you, they may try to pull you back down, not out of malice, but because your progress disrupts their sense of equilibrium. Their discouragement, however, does not have to be your burden. Recognizing their reactions for what they are, a reflection of their own fears and insecurities, is the first step in freeing yourself from their influence. You learn to separate their doubts from your reality, understanding that their inability to envision a better future does not diminish your capacity to create one. In embracing your vision despite their resistance, you cultivate resilience. The Stoics remind us that the path to greatness is seldom easy, but it is worth pursuing nonetheless. With each step forward, you strengthen your resolve, not only proving to yourself that your dreams are valid, but also inspiring those who are willing to rise alongside you. In time, you learn that the true measure of your success is not in the approval of others, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are forging your own path. Number 8, they sabotage your efforts. Sometimes their sabotage is subtle, a missed message, an offer to help that never materializes, or a promise made but conveniently forgotten when it matters most. It might come in the form of small delays that seem inconsequential at first, but accumulate over time, creating frustration and forcing you to depend on them in ways you hadn't intended. You may notice that they offer help at critical moments, but fail to follow through, leaving you scrambling at the last minute to cover what they promised. This creates a recurring cycle where you feel both indebted to them for offering assistance and resentful when they fail to deliver. Other times, their actions are more deliberate and calculated, offering to assist with something essential, only to be unreliable or make you wait endlessly, placing you in a position where they control the outcome and your progress is halted by their whims. They might show up late, forget key details, or act as though their presence alone should suffice. These tactics aren't mere forgetfulness, they are methods of maintaining control, ensuring that your reliance on them becomes a point of manipulation. They may agree to a casual meet with you, only to arrive several hours late, showing a clear disregard for your time and effort. Often, they come armed with excuses, perhaps claiming they didn't have enough notice or that unforeseen events delayed them. However, the pattern becomes evident when these excuses occur repeatedly, leaving you feeling devalued and unimportant. It's not just about tardiness, it's about the underlying message that your time isn't worth respecting. Over time, this behavior erodes trust, as each delayed meeting reinforces the sense that they prioritize their convenience over your commitment. Their goal is rarely overt. Instead, it's often cloaked in gestures that appear supportive on the surface, but are designed to leave you feeling powerless. They might frame their actions as being helpful, even when their unreliability causes more harm than good. You might find yourself questioning whether you are being overly sensitive or unfair in your judgment, yet the consistent pattern of their behavior tells another story. The Stoics remind us that while we can't control others' actions, we can control our response. Recognizing their behavior for what it is, an attempt to manipulate the situation and maintain control, is the first step to reclaiming your power. This understanding allows you to detach emotionally from their tactics, ensuring that their actions no longer dictate your sense of self-worth or ability to move forward. By understanding their true intent, you learn to navigate these dynamics with greater clarity. You begin to anticipate their patterns, setting boundaries that protect your progress and minimize their influence. This might mean declining their offers of help altogether, choosing instead to rely on more dependable sources or your own resilience. In doing so, you assert your autonomy, ensuring that their subtle or deliberate attempts at sabotage no longer dictate your path forward. This shift in perspective, grounded in Stoic wisdom, helps you stay centered and resilient, even in the face of their manipulative efforts. You learn to trust your own capabilities, understanding that while their actions may attempt to hinder you, your progress ultimately lies in your own hands. Their attempts at sabotage become less effective when met with clarity, confidence, and a refusal to engage in their game. Over time, you find that by setting firm boundaries and remaining focused on your goals, you reclaim the power they once sought to control. Number 9, they don't celebrate your milestones. When you achieve something significant, a promotion, a personal milestone, a life event, they seem indifferent. No calls, no messages, no acknowledgement. Your joy is met with silence, a silence that speaks louder than words ever could. You wait, hoping for even a hint of recognition, but it never comes. Their refusal to celebrate with you speaks volumes. It's not about being busy, it's about their inability to be happy for you. They may offer excuses, claiming they didn't know or were caught up in their own matters, but the pattern becomes undeniable when it happens repeatedly. It's not an oversight, it's a choice to withhold joy, a choice to diminish your happiness. This silence creates a void, a moment where you realize that the support you yearned for isn't forthcoming. The Stoics teach us that true friendship and family rejoice in each other's success, that shared joy should amplify happiness, not stifle it. When those closest to you refuse to share in your achievements, it reflects more about their own struggles than it does about your worth. Their silence is a reflection of their own inner turmoil, a discomfort with witnessing your growth, perhaps because it highlights areas where they feel they have fallen short. Instead of rising with you, they retreat into themselves, unable to muster genuine happiness for your success. Recognizing this dynamic can be painful, but it also offers clarity. Once you understand that their reaction stems from their own insecurities, you can begin to free yourself from the need for their validation. You learn to find joy in your own accomplishments, to celebrate yourself even when others cannot. In doing so, you reclaim your power and your right to be proud of what you have achieved, unburdened by their silence. Number 10, they avoid meaningful conversations. Deep down, you crave meaningful connection. You long for conversations that go beyond the surface, discussions about hopes, dreams, struggles, and the very essence of who you are. But with them, such depth is elusive. Conversations remain superficial, limited to polite exchanges or routine pleasantries. They don't make an effort to reach out, and when you are nearby, they always seem busy, occupied with tasks or excuses that prevent genuine interaction. Invitations are rare, and when they do extend one, it often feels more like an obligation than a genuine desire to spend time with you. Their avoidance isn't just physical, it's emotional. They keep their walls up, steering conversations away from anything that might foster closeness. When you attempt to share something personal, they may respond with brief, dismissive comments that signal disinterest rather than engagement. Over time, this emotional distance leaves you feeling isolated, as if your efforts to connect are met with a quiet resistance. You may find yourself questioning whether the relationship is worth pursuing, wondering if you are asking too much. Yet, the Stoics remind us that while we cannot force connection where it doesn't exist, we can choose to seek relationships that nurture our well-being. True bonds are built on mutual respect, understanding, and a willingness to engage deeply. Instead of continuously seeking validation from those who avoid it, the Stoics urge us to focus on cultivating relationships with people who truly value and appreciate us. By shifting your energy toward those who reciprocate your desire for meaningful connection, you protect your emotional health and foster a sense of belonging. It's not about giving up on those who remain distant. It's about recognizing where to invest your time and heart. In doing so, you free yourself from the frustration of unmet expectations and open the door to authentic, enriching relationships that uplift and inspire you. Number 11, they belittle your struggles. When you open up about your challenges, hoping for empathy, they dismiss your feelings. It's not that bad, they say, or worse, others have it harder. These statements are not merely dismissive. They serve as a means to invalidate your experiences and minimize your struggles. Instead of offering support, they create an environment where you feel unheard, as if your pain is insignificant. Over time, this pattern erodes your confidence in sharing personal matters. You begin to question whether opening up is worth the risk, knowing that your vulnerability may be met with judgment rather than compassion. Worse yet, your honesty becomes ammunition, used against you in future arguments. They may bring up your struggles in moments of conflict, twisting your openness into a weapon that serves their narrative. The Stoics teach us that while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. They emphasize the importance of resilience, not allowing external circumstances or the reactions of others to dictate our inner peace. By recognizing their behavior for what it is, a reflection of their own inability to offer empathy, you can begin to shield yourself from further harm. In shielding yourself, you learn to seek solace in those who truly listen and care. You cultivate a circle of trust that isn't predicated on judgment, but on mutual understanding. This shift not only protects your emotional well-being, but also empowers you to rise above their dismissiveness, finding strength in your own ability to navigate life's challenges without relying on their validation. It's painful to realize that those closest to you may harbor jealousy or act as silent enemies, but awareness is the first step to freedom. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our thoughts, our reactions. You can't change their behavior, but you can change how you respond. Protect your peace, set boundaries, and seek out those who genuinely support your journey. Remember, your worth isn't determined by their validation. You are enough just as you are. Rise above, not out of spite, but out of love for yourself. Let their envy be their burden, not yours.